Hi, thanks for watching. Okay, so now looking back on the Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow murders case, okay, one of the things that's really struck me is how well both Chad and Lori and Alex were able to sort of play police officers.
How old's your sister?
44 or 5.
Okay.
Is it sad that I don't know?
I have to do the math. Don't worry about it.
It's hard enough remembering my own age.
Right. Each birthday, you're like, that didn't happen.
After 45, who cares?
To play law enforcement. Okay, when you look at, for example, how Tammy's death was investigated the morning after she died, it's just amazing to me how well the family was able to sort of manipulate, let's say, the coroner to maybe not conduct as good of an investigation as she could have. And likewise, I'm really impressed. I'm honestly impressed with how poorly the Chandler Police Department investigated Charles's killing in the morning after he was killed.
He came back in and his phone was on the counter and I had his phone. And he was like, give me my phone. And I was like, why don't you show me your text that you've been texting, blah, blah, blah. You know, whatever.
And I'm starting with this clip of Lori being interviewed because there's a few things that for me are a little bit troubling about this interview. Okay. Number one, the first thing is that the detective that's interviewing Lori, I don't see her actually writing in a notebook. I don't see her taking notes. She may be taking notes, it may be down in her lap, but I think I would have preferred a situation where they had like a desk or like some kind of table where it could just be a little less of like a playroom.
Because he's like acting really weird, like he's plotting something. He's been talking to my other brother, and my brother came into town at the same time last night.
I think that interview room would be better for like interviewing children, but I'm not sure that was a good professional choice as to where to interview Lori, because I think she needed to have a room that gave off a little more sense of the seriousness in the investigation without intimidating her, right? You don't want to intimidate her, but still something a little more professional. And I think the person investigating should have had a notebook right in front of her on a table where she could have been taking clear notes and concentrating on her notes.
And I haven't talked to my brother in a while, my other brother, and I was like, and so he was texting him on the phone when he first got to my house. And I'm like, why are you texting Adam? Like, do you even talk to him?
I say that because if you look at these clips, okay, it really strikes me that the detective, my impression of the detective with her body language is that she's looking straight at Lori and she's sort of in this eye contact, trying to sort of receive what Lori is saying, but I don't see her taking notes. I just don't see it. I see her body posture is just drinking in and just having eye contact with Lori, okay? And I think that could be a mistake because Lori has just given her two hugely important pieces of information, okay? And these clips, if you go back, she's making it clear that all this fight started when Lori took Charles's phone. Okay, number one, we all know that, right? But it's very important. The dynamics of this fight started with Lori taking his phone. That's the number one. The number two is that immediately out of the gate, Lori is making it clear that there's all kinds of brothers in this picture. You got Alex, who's spending the night. You know, that's weird enough. He's spending the night in that house, obviously acting like a protector.
Your brother lives there with you?
No.
Okay.
He had stayed with me last night because I was worried he was going to come over and cause trouble with me.
She says cause trouble with me, but this is why you need to take notes, because it's like, what trouble? If this fight was started by Lori taking the phone, okay, what is Charles actually doing as an aggressor? Okay, in this case, Lori is the aggressor. So if she's all worried about, you know, some trouble coming from Charles, tell us about it, because in this story, the only aggression is coming from Lori. She's the one starting this. So these all need to be written down as notes.
And just wanted someone else there, like my brother there, because I trust my brother.
And then you have another brother who's on the other side, okay? So you have, you know, let's say the brothers that are on Lori's side, and then apparently you have brothers that are on Charles's side. I think that deserves some note taking, okay? That's kind of like, you want to almost make like a table, like, okay, you have Lori's side, you have the other side, Charles' side. And then it's like, okay, we have brothers on this side, and then we have brothers on that side. So if I were a detective, I would be really not just focusing on my eye contact with Lori, but I would also be taking a lot of notes and then maybe preparing for some follow-up questions.
So this morning he comes back in and...
He comes back in, I wouldn't give him his phone. He was screaming at me to give him his phone. He was very worried about whatever was on his text that he did not want me to see.
Okay, now I realize in this initial part of the interview, it's important to let Lori tell the story. Okay, so just let Lori tell the story, but you have to take more notes because then you're going to have to do follow-up questions. Okay, and so I would be furiously taking notes, and this is what my table would look like. Okay, I would have a table saying Lori's side, and I would say Charles's side, right? It would be like a tree. It would be like Lori's side, Charles's side. And then on the column for Lori, I would put Alex, because Alex is obviously on Lori's side, right? And then I would put Adam on Charles's side, right? Okay, but then if you go back and listen, okay, Lori gives off some cool information.
He's been talking to my other brother, and my brother came into town at the same time last night.
She says that Adam has just come into town. So I would put Adam, just come into town, locate this guy, to-do list. Let's locate Adam. Then the other thing is Lori keeps making a big deal of the cell phones, the cell phones. Checklist, let's get the cell phones. Let's look at the text messages. You know what I mean? So I'd have this whole list of things for follow-up, and I just don't see this detective doing that busy logistical work of setting up her to-do list and looking like a professional detective. I think she's just in the conversation.
He came back in and his phone was on the counter and I had his phone.
Okay, now I'm just replaying this part because Lori says something to me that is phenomenal if you're paying attention. This is phenomenal. She says his phone was laying on the counter and then I had his phone. Okay, so she skips the part that's called I took the phone. Okay, so she's omitting her active participation. She's just kind of letting that slip away. It's like his phone was on the counter and then I had the phone. It's like she's skipping that part of I grabbed the phone. Okay, so I would put that in the category of like, this is kind of like manipulative voodoo, where she's sort of like emphasizing things that are not her actions. So she's not emphasizing her action. And I would say she's deleting her active aggression. Okay. Now, of course, I'm not going to challenge her right now, but I would put that in my notes. Okay. And so I would have a page full of notes.
And he was like, give me my phone. And I was like, why don't you show me your text that you've been texting?
Okay. And on this part that I just played, okay, I would have put in my notes, big backstory. There's a big backstory. We're going to get it through the text messages. So I would put in my notes to do. We need to get phones. We need to look at text messages if we can. And we need to develop the backstory. Because whatever happened here in this fight, this is just the tip of the iceberg. This is the result of a big backstory.
So I was just holding it there and he was screaming at me.
Again, in my notes, okay, she says, I was just holding it there. That's passive. What she was doing is she was keeping it away. Okay, keep away. She was keeping the phone away from Charles, not just holding it, right? So I would put she is using passive minimization. She's using passive language, or she's omitting to try to minimize her aggression.
And I was kind of walking towards around the house with it, so he couldn't get it. He's like reaching for it.
Okay, so now Lori says I was kind of walking with the phone so that he wouldn't get it. Okay, I think, again, we can assume the pattern of minimizing her aggression. She was probably scurrying around the house, basically trying to force Charles into sort of like a chasing scene. Okay, so I would say, I would put in my notes orchestration. She's orchestrating a scene where there's going to be a big flow, moving around the house, right? Okay, so I would put, this is a lot of orchestration and escalation. So I would put down for Lori orchestration and especially escalation. So the escalation is coming from Lori and she's minimizing it.
And then my brother heard all the commotion because he was in there in bed. And so he came out into the main room.
Okay, now Alex is getting involved. So in my note taking, I've got a column for Alex, okay? Or Alex is sort of on the Lori side, right? And so I'm going to put on the column, okay, we're going to cross-check with Alex. I'm kind of going to be looking for Alex to verify that that Charles was saying, give me my phone, just so everything lines up. So I got my to-do list here to follow up, not just with Lori, but also with Alex, right?
And my brother grabbed him from behind, like just to stop him from hitting Tylee.
You go like this, like he grabbed him, like
Yeah, from behind, like just kind of to pull him back. And then they got into the thing, and he's hitting him with the bat, and they're on the ground, like grappling around or whatever.
Okay, now all these details I'm going to want to be cross-checking with Alex. Okay, so Alex is in the other room. So obviously I'm going to meet with the detective who's in the other room with Alex, and we're going to come together and have a little halftime where we're going to talk about all these issues, and then we're going to go back and cross-check this information. But right here, Lori is basically saying specifically that they went down to the ground and they were grappling on the ground. Okay. And then it sounds as though Charles was hitting Alex multiple times with the bat, if we are to believe. Let's see what else she says.
He was hitting him with the bat, like swinging the bat, back and forth, and they were kind of like on the ground, and I was like freaking out trying to go around.
Okay, so it really does sound like, according to Lori, Charles was hitting Alex multiple times with the bat. Okay, that's important because, I don't have to believe what she's saying, but that's what she's telling us. Okay, and she's also saying they were on the ground. The other interesting thing is that Lori says, I was trying to go around as opposed to getting away. Okay, it's very interesting the way language works. Another person would just get away from that scene. Okay, other people would try to break it up, right? But she says going around. So it's almost like she's kind of hovering around and sort of circling, and that to me is the behavior of an orchestrator, right? And so, you can't prove it, but at least she's kind of leaking her point of view, and I'm getting the point of view of an orchestrator.
And then I had told Tylee, because she was on the ground, because after he took the bat from her, she fell back. And so I told her, I was like, go get in the car with JJ. Like, I don't want JJ coming in to the house, and I wanted her out of the way. I wanted the kids out of the way, whatever this fight was going to be.
She says, whatever this fight was going to be. Whatever this fight was going to be. See, that's language. That's the language of somebody who sees this thing sort of unfolding, right? And she sort of has a sense this is going to unfold into something, whatever this is going to be. And I want people out. So this is the language of a director. Okay. She's like, okay, well, Tylee is over here, but now I want Tylee over there, and I want JJ over there, and I want this happening here. Orchestration, right? Orchestration. So I would start to be forming in my notebook, the hypothesis, the possibility that this whole thing was orchestrated. Okay. Why is Alex spending the night? Did they really give a satisfying answer for why Alex spent the night? And then she's the one who starts the escalation by taking the phone, okay, keeping away, playing keep away with the phone, running around, starting a big motion around the house. Then Alex comes out almost on cue. Okay. And then I'm going to now start taking people and moving them out of the scene. So Tylee, now you come over here, and JJ over there, and I'm going to be sort of circling and watching. And that's the language of a director.
Walk me through what happened today.
Well, I stayed the night at my sister's.
Okay, my first observation is that this interview seems more professional, but there are some issues, okay? Because just like in the other interview, this detective is more focused on the eye contact and not so much on his notebook. I'm a big believer in notebooks. I think notebooks are a good way to also intimidate the other person a little bit and sort of make them understand this is serious stuff. But I wish I could see a notebook here. The other thing I noticed is that Alex's body language, he is taking body language control. Normally, I don't like to focus on body language, but here it's so obvious that Alex is really presiding over this meeting, and he's not afraid at all. Okay, normally people are kind of afraid of law enforcement. I'm really noting, and this is just like Melanie Pulowski, Melanie Boudreau. She also has no fear of law enforcement when you see her in law enforcement videos. So I'm really paying attention. This guy, Alex, has no fear, and he's even taking kind of a defiant, aggressive stance in the interview. So I'm looking at a guy who seems pretty aggressive, and I'm gonna put my first note is I'm gonna say this guy's aggressive. Okay, and then the other thing is he does say he spent the night, and we'll see if he ever gives a satisfying explanation for why he spent the night. And we want to cross-check with Lori, because Lori admits he spent the night because she wanted protection. Okay, she said that earlier, right?
I stayed there last night, and this morning Charles showed up, and I don't know what started it.
Okay, you got to have your notebook. Okay, he says, I don't know what started it. Okay, that's what he claims. That's the position he's taking. Take notes. He says he doesn't know what started it. You got to compare, because apparently, according to Lori, there was screaming going on. And in the screaming, Charles was making it very clear. He was saying, give me my phone. So why would Alex be forgetting that or not wanting to talk about it? I am going to make a note of that.
So he showed up. He was following her and yelling. And then I got between them.
Okay, this is really important. He says Charles was following her and yelling, and then I got between him. All right, very important. You gotta really take notes here, because why was he following her? Okay, and he says earlier, I didn't know. Okay, it's just, he's just following her and yelling. All right, If he doesn't understand the motives, that's a problem for me because he's part of this house. He's not far away. And apparently Charles was making it very clear verbally why he was doing it. So I'm concerned that Alex is trying to slant the telling of this to make it look like Charles is the aggressor. Okay. Now, of course, I don't know that yet, but I'm going to be taking notes. Okay. And I'm going to compare with what Lori has to say, because very clearly from Lori's side, Lori actually started this.
And Tylee told him to get back. She took her bat like that and shoved him, and he took the bat away. And I said, "What are you doing?" And I got between them, and then he hit me. And I just went down, and when I got up, he was still yelling.
Okay, this is why you have to take notes, because now Alex is saying something way different than what Lori is saying. Okay, Lori says that Alex grabbed Charles from behind. Okay, and then Charles ended up hitting him with the bat, right? But here, Alex is saying he got right in between Tylee and Alex and just kind of got straight up on Charles, basically. Okay. And then instead of saying they went down on the ground and that Charles hit him multiple times, he's saying he just got hit once. And in this part, he doesn't say he was hit with the bat. Okay. If you're hit with the bat, you're going to say that, right? So it's very interesting to me that he says he hit me, but he doesn't say with the bat. So there's all kinds of differences. And this is why you have to have a notebook, write it down.
So I went into the bedroom where I was staying, grabbed my gun, I came back.
Okay.
And told him to put the gun down, or the bat down.
Okay, this part sounds really fishy to me. Okay, here is the uncle trying to protect Tylee, right? And now he's just gonna take a break. Let's take a break in the scene. Let's just call a cut. And now I'm gonna go to my room and pick up my gun and I'll come back. He's gonna leave this aggressor Charles to beat up Tylee. That doesn't make sense. He's there to separate Charles from Tylee. And now he's gonna go to his room to get the gun, leaving Charles directly with Tylee. That sounds like they took a pause in the scene. You know, everybody just freeze while I go get my gun. Doesn't sound realistic. Now, I don't know what happened. Okay. I don't know how he got the gun. I don't know if maybe Lori grabbed the gun and fed it to him. You know, who knows? I mean, but the bottom line is this doesn't make sense. The idea that everybody would just take a pause while he just goes and gets the gun to come back doesn't make sense. And then he has a Freudian slip. He says, drop the gun.
Told him to put the gun down. Or the bat down.
Okay, and then he says, no, drop the bat. And that is maybe a leakage that maybe Charles said, you dropped that gun. You know, like maybe, whoa, like what are you doing with the gun? And so I think we're getting some leakage here that they're not being very honest about what's really happening. And there's something fishy about this part, okay? And so here I would be taking notes like crazy. Now, right now, I'm just gonna let him tell the story, right? But these notes are so that later you can come back and start to close the nets on these people. Obviously, in the beginning, you don't want them to be paranoid, okay? And you want them just to tell the story. But later on, the only way you can really close the nets on these people is you got to have good notes. And there's just not enough note taking here.
And he came to me and was saying, what are you going to do? Like that, and come to me with the bat. I said, put it down. He wouldn't. He came at me, so.
Okay, as a police, I'm thinking this is bullshit. This is just bullshit. All right, you know, here he is standing with a gun, and he's going to come at him with a bat. In other words, Alex is pointing a gun straight at him, and that Charles is going to come at him with a bat. That's not realistic. Okay, I'm not saying it didn't happen, but it sounds like bullshit. All right, now you know I could think to myself as a cop, oh, that sounds like bullshit. You know. It doesn't mean that that's actually true or one or the other is true, but I'm going to be thinking that's bullshit. So I'm going to be paying attention. I'm going to be taking notes and I'm going to think, okay, you tell your story now, buddy. You're going to tell your story now, but later I'm going to make you focus and I'm going to make you get real microscopic on exactly what it meant when you said he approached you with a bat while you had a gun. So we'll save that for later, but I'd be writing this down.
What's he doing again?
He's got the bat.
Okay.
And he's looking at me and he's going, whoop. And I told him, I said, Charles, put that bat down. And he goes, what are you going to do about it?
How were you holding the gun when that happened?
Holding it
Okay,
right
so
at
you
him.
pointed it out.
Yeah.
Okay, and as a cop, you have to look at like the personality of the person you're dealing with. Here's a guy who has no fear of law enforcement. He's leaning forward with his hands extended forward in this table, okay? Very aggressive posture. And then he chuckles. He chuckles just hours after killing his brother-in-law, okay? He's chuckling about how he held a gun straight at his center of mass, right? I notice things like that, and the cop should put that down. This guy's a weirdo.
You tell him, Charles, put the gun down,
Yeah,
or put the bat down.
Mm-hmm.
And what did he say?
He's like, what are you going to do about it?
Okay.
And then comes at me.
Okay, so this part is good because he's making Alex get real specific. He's making us now believe that Alex had the gun pointed straight at him, straight at his center of mass, and that somehow Charles keeps coming at him. It's like, yeah, I'll tell you what, I don't have to believe that. All right. You're saying that. I don't have to believe it happened like that. Okay. Maybe something happened, but that, the way you're saying it, I don't have to believe that. But let's just let him keep going.
And then you fire a couple times.
Yeah.
But you're not sure how many. You know it was more than one.
I'm pretty sure it was two.
Two? Okay, 2 shots. Where were you aiming on his body?
Just center.
Okay, so you're pretty sure 2 shots center mass.
Yeah.
Okay, so just like with Lori, we have like a checklist. As she's talking, she's sort of giving out information that leads to a checklist. Like with Lori, she's suggesting that her brother Adam just got into town. So it's like, okay, let's get in touch with Adam. She's talking about cell phones and texts. Okay, let's check out the phones. Let's look at the texts. Here with Alex, he's talking about how he killed his brother. Okay, he did 2 shots right in the center of mass, right? He shot him twice. Okay, well, here I'm going to put to do. Let's see what the criminalistics look like. You know, they have crime scene investigators all over that scene right now. So I'm going to check in with them to see if everything they find checks out with what Alex is saying.
You come towards him.
Yeah.
And then what happened right after that?
He shoved me and spun me around.
Okay.
And then cracked me in the back of the head.
Okay, he cracked him on the back of the head. Okay, now, all right. I'm not saying that didn't happen, but I'm saying that doesn't sound realistic. It just doesn't sound realistic. It sounds very pat. It sounds like something made up. He spun me around and then he just cracked me in the back of the head. Give me a break. I mean, you know, Alex seems like a pretty agile, pretty aggressive dude. You don't think he'd be squirming and shifting and trying to get away. You think he just, okay, I got turned around and he just cracked me in the back of the head. I'm thinking to myself, maybe that happened, but it sounds a little too pat. Sounds a little too pat. And also that injury to me, that doesn't look like somebody who got hit in the head with a bat. All right. To me, that's not what it looks like. So all that goes in my notebook.
Cracked you in the back of the head. He hit you one time?
Yeah.
Okay. So you go back to your room.
I stumbled forward, yeah, and then I went back in there.
Did you fall to the ground when you got hit with the bat?
No, my head bounced.
Okay.
Okay, this is why you have to take notes, okay? Because now Alex is making very clear that he never went down to the ground. His head just bounced. Okay, so that also tells you how hard could he have been cracked by a baseball bat if all that happened was his head just bounced. All right, if you were really cracked with a baseball bat, you would be unconscious. Okay, you would go to the ground and you'd be unconscious. So it wasn't like he got a concussion. Okay, and again, that injury in the back of his head, that doesn't look to me like he got cracked with a baseball bat.
She was saying something about Charles texting your other brother. Is it Andy?
Adam?
Do you know anything about that? Okay.
No.
Okay, here we're setting up the to-do list, and also we're getting a better view of the injury. Now, this is the first time I've kind of noticed that it does look like there is some bruising, but I would expect much more bruising. Okay, so what I see, the most prominent thing I see in this injury is a laceration. Okay, which is not what I would expect from a baseball bat. So I have questions. Okay, maybe he did get hit with a baseball bat, but me, I'm setting up a to-do list. Okay, here he's saying he hasn't heard anything about the Adam stuff, right? Well, I want to see his texting history to see if he's really telling the truth. So what I'm thinking for my to-do list is I want to get his phone if he can volunteer it. Hopefully he will. So I'm going to work on being real nice to him and not seeming to be very threatening to see if I can get him to volunteer his cell phone, because I want to see if he's really telling the truth, that he didn't know anything about Adam coming into town, right? And all that would be to try to stall the process. You want to stall the process. You want to make Alex feel like he's busy doing all kinds of things. You know, people are checking out things. Doctors are checking out things. We're checking out cell phones. We're checking some criminalistics, and then you're going to come back later on and really confront him.
Is there a reason you spent the night there last night?
No, not really.
Okay.
Just hang out. We were going to hang out today.
Okay.
Okay, so this is another area where his testimony is very different from Lori's testimony. Okay, and the other thing too, let's not forget, he never talks about being on the ground or getting hit multiple times by the bat. So Lori is also saying other way different things about the actual fight scene, where Lori says they were on the ground grappling. Okay, and Alex says his head just bobbed down, basically. You know, so there are some major differences. And with this thing about spending the night, like, why did he spend the night?
Did your sister ever tell you she was concerned for her safety or well-being for Charles coming there?
No.
Alex is presenting himself as not having any knowledge of the reason why Lori gave for him spending the night.
He had stayed with me last night because I was worried he was going to come over and cause trouble with me. Just wanted someone else there, like my brother there, because I trust my brother.
So that to me is a pretty big deal because it's very unusual to be spending the night. And that could lead up to a theory that maybe they set up a situation, they provoked a fight to make it look like self-defense. Okay, that's a very plausible possibility. So, this issue of why were you spending the night, that's a very important question.
No, we're just running a criminal history to make sure that
Yeah.
you're not a prohibited possessor. So there's no felony convictions. No.
Correct. There was a confessed felony aggravated assault
Okay.
in Austin, Texas in 2007.
Okay, this is important because this refers to the incident back in Texas where Alex assaulted Joseph Ryan, okay, which is I think Tylee's father and Lori's ex, who also died mysteriously, right? So this is very important background, okay, because this would set up a history where Alex is assaulting people that are married to Lori and acting as a protector.
Have your rights been restored? Or are you
Oh,
legally
yeah.
able to?
Yeah,
Okay, so your
yeah.
rights are restored. You're
All done.
able to possess a
I was
firearm.
never convicted.
Oh, okay.
Okay, this is really annoying to me because I don't get the feeling from these detectives that they really like their jobs. Okay, if you're going to be investigating people getting killed, investigating homicides, I hope at least you enjoy your job and you take it seriously. Okay, I don't see I don't see the curiosity in these people. I don't see that they really like their jobs or that they're really interested in really investigating what happened. Okay, because this detective, the only thing he's concerned about is whether Alex was technically possessing his gun as a convicted felon. Is it a felon in possession? Felons can't possess firearms. Okay, well, that's important. And I think that's like part of the checklist. But also, like, if this guy's going to open up and he even wants to like volunteer information about this prior assault, I would let him expand and talk about it because it'll be, this guy's losing an opportunity to get a key piece of information because it just so happens that this prior felony is directly connected to him protecting his sister under very similar circumstances and using a weapon. All right. So, I'm frustrated because I see here a little bit, I think, evidence that the detectives don't really love their jobs. Okay. If you're going to be investigating homicide, you better be somebody gung-ho who really likes to investigate homicides because these guys don't have the curiosity, at least from what I can tell.
Pled guilty, but they had deferred adjudication in Texas, so I completed probation, and then
Gotcha.
that was that.
Okay, so it's an open-ended thing. So it's
Yes.
a misdemeanor now.
Well, whatever. It's just on there as a whatever. I don't know what the technical record is.
Okay.
It was an adjudicated, withheld, deferred sentence on a felony, on a serious felony in Texas. Okay, so it wasn't just anything, and I don't think the police should just let it go. Okay, I think they should look into it, and they should ask Alex to talk more about it. But anyway, to summarize all of this, okay, what I see is the police did an okay job of gathering information, getting an initial story from both Lori and Alex. All right, but there was no halftime, and I don't think the cops really got together in a halftime to sort of compare notes and then go back and confront both of them. Okay, because their stories are different. Okay, Lori's story is different in a few key aspects. Alex's story is different in a few key aspects. Now, I wouldn't have attacked them, if I'm going to go back, like say in round 2 with these guys, I wouldn't be too confrontational, okay? But what I would do is I would say, look, there are some discrepancies, right? And we're gonna study this a little bit. Meanwhile, we're gonna get a doctor to look at your injury. And I would say we also would like to, if you guys are willing to let us look at your cell phones, we want to kind of look into that. And we also want to get contact information for all the relatives that live in town, okay? Because this looks like there's a lot of relatives involved in this. We got brothers here, we got brothers there. We need to know what family members are in town that have been in on the conversation with all this backstory, right? And so I would have gotten them to give me like a lot of contact information, and I would have had Adam Cox in that building before Alex got out of there, okay? And I also would have had like some kind of really good forensic doctor or some kind of medic who can do a medical analysis to really study his injury and make sure that really was from the baseball bat the way he described. But just in case they didn't want to volunteer their cell phone information, maybe they would have gotten paranoid and said, you know what, I'm not giving you my cell phones. Or maybe they would have gotten a little defensive. That's why I would have held them, stalling them with like, say, a medical investigation, or maybe looking into the criminal history, just kind of stalling them a bit, because it would give criminalistics a chance to get back to the detectives and let them know that they found evidence that one of the shots, okay, was shot down while Charles was on the ground. I think it was very quickly figured out by the crime scene, the people studying the crime scene, that there was a sign that one of the gunshots was straight down when Charles was on the ground. Okay, and I think that if they had coordinated better, I think they could have stalled them long enough to get information from the crime scene investigators to say, hey, we found something interesting. And then that would allow them to do more follow-up and say, hey, buddy, one of those shots, it looks like you were standing over him and you shot Charles while he was on the ground. So in that sense, if they don't want to give up their cell phone data, you might say, I can just get a warrant for your cell phone, because now it looks like you're really not telling the truth. So what I would do is I'd be real nice to him. I wouldn't confront him with the criminalistics, right? About Charles being shot on the ground. I would first give them an opportunity to offer the cell phones voluntarily. But if they wanted to get difficult, I would be prepared to have something, possibly, something from the crime scene that really makes them look like they're not telling the truth, and that might intimidate them. But the bottom line is, if the police had gotten cell phone data, okay, they would have discovered the whole family was involved, and there was some really suspicious, texting going on, especially involving Summer Shiflett.
There are some text messages between Summer and her sister Lori that I understand are very shocking. Is that correct?
I mean, in the context of everything, yeah. To me, yeah.
Mhm.
And this is from the FOIA docs from Chandler, Arizona. Okay. And it says Lori found out about the potential intervention on 7/9/2019. My uncle was murdered on the 11th. She reached out to Alex Cox, Melanie Boudreaux, and Summer Shiflett to warn them of the elaborate plan that Adam Cox and Charles had. Okay, it says Adam and his son, Zach, were picked up at the airport on 7/10/2019 by Adam's mother, Janice.
Oh my
It
God.
didn't say Janice, but anyway.
But that's who it is. Yeah.
Summer provided Lori with updates regarding Adam's whereabouts and asked Lori, so Summer asked Lori if she wanted to run interference. Lori told Summer that she was trying to figure it out. Summer commented, quote, "I will kill him myself if that is the case," unquote, exclamation point times 4, okay, unquote. Lori responded, quote, "No, I need you safe," unquote. There is no indication who Summer was talking about killing. And I'm like, I have some
I
pretty
have a pretty good idea.
Okay, so I realize that both Lori and Alex do put some emotional voodoo into the picture. They do bring voodoo into this. They're very composed. They have no fear. They're very manipulative in the way they present information. But I also think these police do not enjoy their jobs, and I think these detectives were basically just sleeping through these investigations. And Lori gave plenty of information. She even said that Adam Cox is in town right now. Okay, so they could have gotten Adam Cox while they were interviewing Lori. They could have coordinated and got somebody to bring Adam Cox right over there to the police station, right? And they could have gotten their cell phones if they, politely asked. The police can be manipulative too, and the police can be manipulative and be nice to them and say, hey, can we get your cell phones, or at least show me the text? And if the police had just done some basic follow up, they probably could have even had Summer Shiflett over there to explain some of these text messages. So all this mystery that we're trying to figure out on YouTube right now, that could have been figured out in the police station that day before Alex even went home, if he ever did go home that day, right? So I really think, in my opinion, just like the coroner, in Rexburg, dropping the ball in investigating Tammy's death, I think the Chandler police here, this cannot be their A team. Okay, this cannot be the A team of the Chandler Police Department. And I really think that whenever you have a death like this, I think you ought to have your best detectives, who really enjoy their jobs, really, really squeezing all the juice out of the fruit, And in this case, I just think there were a lot of leads that didn't get followed. And I think Lori basically handed the information to them. She said Adam Cox was in town, and they just didn't follow up, And so I guess, the biggest thing to me, they should have gotten the cell phones, and they should have had Adam Cox over there that afternoon. Okay, that's just my impression. And so I guess in this case, my analysis, I think the Chandler PD, I just don't think they were playing their A game on this. And now we can see the consequences. So anyway, appreciate your patience, and thanks for watching.